Help support Name Explain by liking this video, leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel. There is a history of mountains and landmarks around the globe being given new names, replacing the indigenous names that were used by people in the area. This is primarily because explorers in the past were discovering these landmarks for themselves and sharing them with their nation, and as these landmarks were new to them, they felt they had to be named and that they had the right to name them, unaware or perhaps simply not caring that they already had names given to them by the indigenous people. These new names were given in the past, and over the years things have changed somewhat. Some of these landmarks given new names in the past have since had their native names restored, while many still have their given names and people are still fighting for their native names to be given back to them. The best and perhaps most well-known example of this is in Australia and their most well-known landmark. Its native name is ULURU and was given this name many years ago by the Pitjantjatjara people. However, in 1873, English-born explorer William Gosse became the first non-Aboriginal to see the rock. He named it Ayres Rock in honour of Sir Henry Ayres, who was Chief Secretary of South Australia at the time, and from this moment Ayres Rock stayed its official name until 1993, when the rock was given the official title of Ayres Rock / Uluru, and then just under 10 years later in 2002 this official title was switched around to be Uluru / Ayres Rock, and officially you can use either. So this is something of a success story for a landmark losing its native name and eventually getting it back, kind of. Though this isn't always the case. In the state of Wyoming in the USA we have Devil's Tower. The Native Americans of this land didn't use this name but had many names for it. Translated in English, these include Greyhorn Butte, Tree Rock, the place where bears live, and most popularly Bear Lodge. However, it seems to have taken on the name Devil's Tower sometime at the turn of the 19th / 20th century when explorers mistranslated its name into Bad God's Tower and then adapted it into Devil's Tower. The natives used no name like this, but it's a name that has since been attached to the butte. And while there have been petitions and demands to give the landmark its traditional native name of Bear Lodge back, this hasn't been formally accepted and officially the name is still Devil's Tower. There are many landmarks across the globe that have native and given names used to varying degrees, and normally when there are multiple names for the same thing, debates arise, and that is the case for a lot of these native and given names. For cases of native names versus given names, we're going to be looking into the 7 summits. These are the single highest mountains of each 7 continents. Climbing each of these mountains seems to be one of the biggest challenges and achievement for any mountain climber. However, it's here we should probably talk about the biggest issue facing the 7 summits. There aren't 7 of them. 9 different mountains have been considered the 7 summits, and this issue has arisen due to different definitions of continents and where one continent ends and another begins. The biggest points of contention lie in Europe and Oceania. Both Mont Blanc in France and Italy and Mount Elbrus in Russia are considered the summits for Europe, but Elbrus gets debated as some see it as being in Asia, and in Oceania, PUNCAK JAYA in Indonesia and Mount KOSCIUSZKO in Australia get debated over being the summit for that continent. It's all a bit silly and confusing, but regardless, I want to talk about all 9 summits of the 7 summits, as these 9 names give us a great cross section of nomenclature. Some of these mountains have the native names they've always had, some of the mountains had names given to them but are back to using their native names, and some still use names that were given to them by non-indigenous people. These 9 mountains are ACONCAGUA, DENALI, ELBRUS, Everest, Kilimanjaro, KOSCIUSZKO, Mont Blanc, PUNCAK JAYA, and VINSON. Let's start with the mountains that have always had native names, and it seems no one else has imposed the name on them. Mont Blanc is in Western Europe and actually overlaps 2 nations, France and Italy. Its more popular name of Mont Blanc is French, but in Italian it has a different name, Monte Bianco, so not that different. And unsurprisingly, these 2 names both translate to mean the same thing in English, White Mountain, named this due to the white snow that covers much of the mountain and the Alps in general. From what I could gather, the mountain hasn't had any other names. ACONCAGUA is the summit for South America. At just under 7,000 meters in height, it is the second tallest of the 7 summits and the tallest mountain in the western and southern hemisphere. This name isn't exactly known to us, but we have theories deriving from languages in the area. One idea is that it comes from the Quechua words ACONCAGUA, meaning summit, other, and admired / feared respectively, or the other idea is that it comes from the Alakua phrase ACONCAGUA, which means comes from the other side. Either way, it seems this name stuck around and wasn't removed or changed when Europeans started settling in the land. While Mount Elbrus in Russia hasn't had a name forced upon it, it's had many different names from languages surrounding it. It seems this name derives from ALBORZ, which is the name of a mountain range in Iran. This name apparently ultimately derives from High Sentinel. However, in other languages from that part of the world, it is called MINGI, which means eternal mountain or like 1,000 mountains. It is also called ALBORZ, which means ice main, and OSHKHAMAKHUA, meaning mountain of happiness. So while it has a variety of names, none of them are really given to it by complete outsiders. Though perhaps the oddest of all is VINSON, as this name bucks the trend. It's the only name this mountain has had, and it is not from a native language or people. This is because VINSON is the tallest mountain in Antarctica, so there were no native people to name in the first place. This name was given to the mountain by the USA and named after Carl Vinson. Carl was a US representative from Georgia. He served from 1935 till 1961. He was strongly for exploring Antarctica, so when the land was finally explored and its tallest mountain summited, it was named in his honor. While these mountains have always got to keep their native names, the next few had given names placed on them, but have since got their native names back. An example of North America's tallest mountain, DENALI, located in Alaska. DENALI is just one native name for the mountain. There's apparently 9 groups of natives who surround the mountain, and they each have/had their own names for it, though DENALI won out. It comes from the Koyukon language and means things along the lines of tall/big. However, this name would eventually be overtaken by the name Mount McKinley, which was given to the mountain in the 19th century. It was named by an Alaskan gold prospector named William Dickey, who was a proud supporter of William McKinley, who would go on to be the 25th president of the USA. He loved the man so much that he suggested the mountain be named after him, and once McKinley himself was assassinated in 1901, the name gained traction. However, many were angry that its native name had been taken away from it. Many wanted the mountain to be called Denali once again, and in 2015, the name Denali was finally reinstated, though there's still much debate as to what this mountain should be called. Africa's Kilimanjaro has a name steeped in all kinds of mystery. There's so many ideas as to where it came from. My favourite comes from the Shaga people who live at its base. It's thought to come from their words difficult/impossible and bird/caravan, so the name means something along the lines of impossible for birds or caravans to pass, as it's just so huge. Though like I said, that's just one idea. Another is that it comes from Swahili and means mountain of greatness. Kilimanjaro is interesting as it has multiple peaks, and when the land was under the rule of Germany and called German East Africa, one of these peaks were named the Kaiser Wilhelm Peak in honor of the Kaiser. However, when Tanzania gained independence in 1961, the peak was renamed UHURU Peak, meaning Freedom Peak. So this wasn't so much an old native name coming back into use, but a name given by another language was still removed. PUNCAK JAYA on the island of New Guinea is seen as Oceania's tallest mountain. To begin with, this mountain had a ton of different names in the nearby languages, though eventually it was given the name of CARSTENSZ Pyramid in the 17th century. It was named in honor of Dutch explorer Jan Carstens, who was the first European to sight the mountain. The current native name of PUNCAK JAYA came about in the 60s. The PUNCAK part comes from the surrounding region, but the Jaya part means victorious. And of course, there's the mountains of the 9 summits that still officially have given names despite there being native names to them, like Australia's KOSCIUSZKO. The mountain was named by a Polish explorer in honor of the Polish national hero Tadeusz Kościuszko. It was named after him as he has a monument in Krakow, and the mountain resembled this monument. Though of course the mountain has aboriginal names too, one of these being Kulnama Namadagi, meaning snow mountain, and it seems this mountain, much like ULURU/Ayers Rock, is on its way to becoming a double name. For now, however, the Australian mountain still has a Polish name. And of course, the biggest and most well-known mountain on our planet has a name of foreign creation too. The name of Everest was given to it by the British, named in honour of Colonel George Everest, who led a survey of mountains here. George himself never actually saw the mountain, however he strictly enforced that mountains should keep their native names, though clearly his demands were not met as Everest is still called Everest. But it does have native names, 2 in fact, as the mountain crosses a national border, these being the Nepali name of Saglamata and the Tibetan name of Shomolungma. The Nepali name means forehead in the sky, and the Tibetan name means mother of the world. So despite having these 2 awesome native names, the mountain is still named after someone who didn't even want it to be named after them. So that brings us to the debate part of this video. We can see from the 9 names of the 7 summits, mountains go through all kinds of naming histories. Some lose their native names but get them back, and some are still fighting for them to be returned. So the question is, should all these given non-indigenous names be removed from mountains and their native names be reinstated as their official names? Well, like with most things, there's arguments on both sides. The argument saying they should have their native names is pretty simple really. These are the native names given to these mountains by the people who lived on and around them. It only makes sense that these people should be the ones to name them. Also, the names should be in the languages of these people too, and these native names are. Plus, many of these given names are from a time in the past when other nations had control over these lands. To many, these names were a reminder of that past of colonialism and empires. Though there is an argument that they shouldn't be changed, and that's because how well established these names are already. Everest has such a high name value that the tourism industry, amongst other things, might suffer if that name were to go away. It could also create a huge amount of confusion too, and even if they were officially changed, I imagine a lot of people just carry on using the old names unless they were educated otherwise. I've often said you can officially change the name of something all you want, but if the masses don't use that official name, then it means nothing. I'm sure you can see that names can be a bit of a minefield, especially when it comes to these mountains. Now, I want to throw a question back to you and perhaps get a discussion going about this. Do you think more mountains should revert back to their native names, or do you think things are fine the way they are now? I'm sure we'll have a nice discussion about it down in the comments, because YouTube is best known for its civil discussions and friendly debates. The 7 summits were suggested by Kevin Iger, and thanks to their suggestion, they will now be honoured as Name Explain's patron saints of the 7 summits. Do you have a good idea for somewhere that's name could be covered in a Name Explain video? If so, then please consider donating on Patreon. Just $1 a month helps keep the channel running and earns you a weekly chance to suggest somewhere to be turned into a video, and you too could be a Name Explain Patreon saint. Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Name Explain depends on small monthly donations from fans like you to help keep the channel running. Just a small amount of $2 a month helps in a huge way, grants you patron exclusive Name Explain extras, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you. Hello all, and thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Check out another video and subscribe to stay in the loop on all things Name Explain. You can follow myself on Twitter at NameExplainYT. Follow me there and tweet the name George at me so I know you came from this message. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.